Hey everyone, welcome to the Harvest number 11. So for a bit of context, Beat started with me getting a bit tired of needing to retool every time I wanted to go between a web, a games, a robotics role, kind of like learning all the ins and outs of each of those ecosystems. And also as a classroom, like a coding workshop teacher, I noticed that it would happen with students as well. For students to be building a game, they couldn't kind of imagine what it would be like to build a website. They're completely different industries, or even going down the stack. Jumping from something like MIT Scratch to Unity, there'd be these huge barriers. So looking at what kinds of technologies could you use to build any software both across and down the stack. That's kind of like the foundation of where Beat came from. Now, more recently, as someone who's going through my own kind of mental health problems and noticing some habits that I'd like to address, things like I guess what you call like dopamine stacking, like eating and watching TV, like these kinds of habits that I notice myself like can be doing more and more of. I'm the kind of person who can get pretty extreme with that kind of stuff. So it's something that I want to address, and I'm looking for ways to do so. I've tried a lot of different things over the years, and nothing's really stuck. And I'm asking the question, well, how could technology help here? Could technology help here? It's an open question. And I guess exploring some of the precedents and ideas behind the effects of technology on behavior. So one of my favorite guys from the past is Seymour Papert. He's one of Alan Kay's mentors. He was really interesting. He saw technology as something that was like, okay, yeah, you can build a cool finished product that can help you be productive with. But what he was really interested in was what happens to the programmer as they make that software. In particular in the classroom, like noticing, for example, a kid who would build like a simulation of a let's say like a boat going through some channels and currents or something like that, would have a far deeper understanding than someone who like just read a book or looked at a map or something like that. So that active engagement with the tool, actually building something. Seems to be well is kind of proven to be very effective for understanding something. And if we're to understand things like our own behavior, I think we're going to need the most powerful tools available, because human behavior is a million times more complicated than than ocean currents, right? Like it's something that we really need a powerful tooling behind. And so I'm thinking about, well, how can you sort of take that same principle of constructionism, of building something, and apply it to like whatever you're trying to address. I sort of go into a bit of a worked example, something like saying, well, the YouTube algorithm is very addictive, so let's replace that with something, local first, or like, self-controlled algorithms, something like what App Protocol could do. And it's like, well, okay, that does solve a part of the problem, but it's a localized part of the problem, right? It might be a symptom, not a cause that someone's watching too much TV. There might be something else going on in your life, some kind of needing to do more exercise to be able to think more clearly. I don't know, like whatever it is. I think we need tools to be able to look at the whole thing. And yeah, so I guess in this blog post I kind of break that down, kind of wanting to be able to the technology kind of wanting to engage with the user to really explore that space so that they can gain an understanding of it. Hopefully the user gains that understanding. Also the piece of technology get some idea about how it should behave to support that that problem, right? To support the user. So just as an example, I could think of would be like it's like a video player, yes, but it's also a sort of a habit tracker. It knows what you're doing throughout the day. And it kind of has an idea, well, hey, maybe now is not a great time to be watching videos. I notice that last time when you, I don't know, did a bit of macrame before you ate or something like that, you were far more able to pace out your habits or your dopamine stacking or whatever it is, right? So that kind of stuff's like super individual, super personal. It's not the kind of thing that you want for-profit companies anywhere near, or at least near the data. Maybe they can provide some of the tools, but the information itself really does need to be local. And so this is where I feel like malleable software, local first, and these kinds of personal problems, they're kind of a really, really a beautiful sort of match. And it's where I'm sort of thinking about like could be some of the most interesting potentials of malleable software. Yeah, so that's sort of I guess what I've been thinking about recently. On the technical side, I've been looking into schemas. I've been looking into. I have this blog post from last November where I was kind of looking at like a declarative way to define state in a way that you could say. I've got application A, I've got application B, and the same data is being used by both of them. They both know how to represent it, where to put it. They might have their own opinions about what they can do with it, but they're kind of able to speak the same language. And so I've been looking a bit more deeper into exactly how that might work. This month I've sort of been saying like, okay, well, you could use JSON schemas, but they're not. I feel like they're not really made for this kind of application. Like carrying around a schema with the value has a few problems that go into in the blog post. and I mean, all of this I've been doing while implementing a new design system, and actually looking at this idea of tokens. Like, well, okay, material design, the look might start to feel a bit dated, but the system itself, the system of design tokens and sort of remapping tokens depending on schemas and personal preferences it's fascinating. It's really interesting. So I've kind of been looking at, well, what if those tokens were globally unique? Using some kind of like reverse domain name, a lookup, you could version them. You could say like, have all these different ways of, pointing, oh, this value is from that document, this value is from that document. If they're versioned, then you could also get like Cambria involved in sort of schema migrations. So I guess it's very early days, but kind of looking at that so that's a design system, but also saying, well, what does that mean for state as well? Because I guess the way I've been thinking, like, is kind of the beat principle is things that feel very different are often very similar. Things like, for example, a CLI and a HTTP router. It turns out they can be like exactly the same kind of thing, or like a design system. A design system, or like the actual business logic of the application. Well, they're both forms of state in a way, particularly when you want that design system to be tailored to the user. So that's pretty much what I've been exploring this week, this month. It's been a lot of fun. I could quickly show you. I'll quickly show you what it looks like in the code, just in case you're interested. So so this is for example, the primary button. You'd say like, okay, well, you got this like background color property. That's mapped to the primary and non-primary variables, and then these primary and non-primary, these are tokens, and these can be pointed to by other systems, like for example the light and dark schemes. So you're just defining these, just a big list of variables, and then, for example, you'd dynamically assign what primary 20 points to, depending on a user's preferred color, and it maps really beautifully onto CSS. But the design system itself is of course, that's supposed to work with web. It's supposed to work with TUIs and also like native Bevy applications. And potentially 3D environments as well. It can be quite beautiful if you see a proper design system applied to a productivity-focused XR environment or something like that in 3D, it can look really beautiful. So just thinking about generalized ways of defining these things, and just starting to see, okay, can we also map that to things like application state and seeing where that ends up. So that's this month. As always, jump on the Beatmatch Discord if you're interested in the project. Come say hi. Talk to you next time.